Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, my friends, unbelievable developments in the last 24 hours. Here is now what is clearly taking place, and now there's no getting around it. Over the last couple of days, Chicago's Marxist mayor, and there's no other way to call him, that's what he is, he's a neo-Marxist, has now signed an executive order, which to me is clearly illegal, unlawful, unconstitutional, and frankly extremely dangerous. An executive order that now has created, in his view, what he calls ICE-free zones across the entire city of Chicago. This means that ICE agents, Customs and Border Protection, are now going to be blocked, impeded, prevented, and it is illegal for them to go after illegal aliens, to go and conduct raids, to arrest criminal illegals, and this will now put them in full confrontation with the city of Chicago, the police department of Chicago, and with the administration of Chicago. What we now have is an insurrection. Literally the legal definition of an insurrection. This is now a city, and in many ways now a state, that is no longer recognizing federal authority, that is now no longer recognizing the ability of federal authority to enforce federal immigration law, and now is literally in open revolt against the Constitution and against the government of the United States. Listen now to Brandon Johnson sign his historic executive order. Roll cut 5, Mike.
If we allow this administration to take away due process for anyone, we will allow them to take away due process for everyone. They told us that this was about the worst of the worst. In reality, they are going after anyone who objects to families being ripped apart and community members being disappeared. ICE lies and people die. We cannot allow this to continue. We must take action more drastic than what we have taken before, because what we are seeing is a more radical attempt to undermine our democracy. And today we are signing an executive order aimed at reining in this out-of-control administration. The order establishes ICE-free zones. That means that city property and unwilling private businesses will no longer serve as staging grounds for these raids.
Look, let me choose my words now very carefully. What you're seeing now is a form of neo-Confederacy. In fact, that's not even my opinion. That's the opinion of Dr. Victor Davis Hanson, who has written an absolutely brilliant column on this, but there are many others now. What you're now watching is, in many ways, the Democratic Party. They started a civil war once. This is what, I mean, the facts are the facts. This is the history. This is the facts. They started a civil war because they rejected the election, the democratic election, the legitimate election of Abraham Lincoln. And that's what they're now starting to do now. They are now unleashing. This is a chain of events now. And whether it's violent resistance, whether it's actively impeding ICE, whether everything that they're doing now, whether it's turning now really sanctuary cities into really no-go zones for federal law enforcement, for ICE, for Customs and Border Protection, they are now behaving very much like the Confederates of the Old South. The Democrats seceded from the United States, launched a massive insurrection against Lincoln, against the Union, against Republicans, because they wanted to protect and preserve cheap slave labor. They wanted to protect and hold on to their cheap slave labor. What are they fighting for today? They want to hold on and protect to cheap illegal labor, to cheap illegal alien labor, and all the voting rights and all the voting power that comes from it. And just like the Confederates in the 1850s and 1860, they are now claiming two things. Literally, history is repeating itself. And those, remember that famous saying, those who don't know history are doomed or condemned to repeat it. That's what's starting to happen. You have, number one, this insane judge, federal district court judge in Oregon, who now is making the unbelievable claim that Trump cannot deploy the National Guard of any state, not just Oregon's National Guard, California's National Guard, Texas's National Guard, any National Guard, even though Texas has willingly, the governor of Texas signed an order saying that we are going to provide the federal government 400 members of the Texas National Guard. They can now be federalized. If Trump wants to deploy them to Oregon, you have my blessing. It doesn't matter. According now to that judge, listen to this. The federal government does not have jurisdiction over federal property. That's the argument. Well, they haven't made that argument since 1860. That's Fort Sumter. When Lincoln said, no, it's a military base, it belongs to the federal government, we have a right to protect it, the Confederates said, no, you have no right to come in, states' rights, you cannot come in and protect Fort Sumter. And that's what started, literally, that's what started the Civil War. They have not made that argument. That argument has not been made ever since 1860, that the federal government does not have jurisdiction. In this case, it's over ICE facilities. And to protect ICE facilities, so you'd have to deploy the National Guard, because local law enforcement has been told to stand down and allow these Antifa terrorists to surround this Portland ICE facility. Now, the same thing is happening in Chicago. You now have an insurrection taking place where the mayor, backed by that crazy governor, that slob Pritzker, has now come out and said nakedly and openly, ICE is not allowed to operate in Chicago. ICE is not allowed to operate in Illinois. And not only that, but that the Chicago Police Department is now being ordered, literally ordered by the mayor and by the governor to not give any assistance to ICE or Customs and Border Protection if they are being attacked, assaulted, shot at, under siege, in any way, shape, or form from far left or Antifa terrorists and protesters. So what is now Brandon Johnson going to do? If they go to a city parking lot or a parking lot at a park or at a parking lot at a nearby school or wherever, where they then conduct raids on nearby neighborhoods or into apartment buildings, where, by the way, that's where Tren de Aragua operates. That's where these murderers and rapists and gangbangers operate. What are you going to do? What, you're going to send in the Chicago police? What, you're going to have a shootout with ICE? Really, what are you going to do? You're going to authorize Antifa to attack ICE officers? Is this what you're now? And what happens now that Trump is sending in, 300 members of the National Guard? Brandon Johnson and Pritzker are now taking Trump to court. What if now Trump decides to send in the National Guard? What are you going to do? Order local authorities to attack them? They are now making the reactionary neo-Confederate argument that the federal government is not supreme in federal matters. that the federal government does not have control over immigration or deportation, and that the federal government cannot protect federal law enforcement, federal property, federal buildings, whether it be in Portland or now in this case expressly in Chicago. My friends, this is 1860. This is what they're arguing now has not been argued since 1860. And then to put the cherry on the sundae. By the way, he's crazy. I'm telling you that Brandon Johnson, you. I mean, it's clearly the elevator does not go to the top with this guy. 617-266-6868 if you want to join the show. Okay, President Trump yesterday in a very powerful press conference that he held, or more Q&A with the reporters in the White House, more of an informal presser, said that he is now seriously considering invoking the Insurrection Act, that his patience is now at an end with the governor of Oregon, the mayor of Portland, the mayor of Chicago, and, of course, Pritzker, the Mr. Golden Corral, that slob, the governor of Illinois, Pigster, as I call him. Now, the mayor of Chicago is now really pushing the envelope. And he has dramatically now escalated and inflamed the conflict between Chicago and the federal government and federal authority. So he now signed, which is clearly an illegal executive order, but he's now signed it, an executive order which now establishes what he says are ICE-free zones across the entire city of Chicago, on all city property, and on all private businesses that don't want to recognize ICE's authority. And so he now says that ICE is not allowed to conduct any raids or make any arrests using city property as a staging ground or going into private businesses that refuse to recognize ICE's authority or that of Customs and Border Protection. So essentially now it's the legal definition of an insurrection. The executive order is illegal and it's an insurrection. It is the direct defiance of lawful federal power, lawful federal constitutional authority. There's something in the Constitution called the Supremacy Clause, meaning that in all things that is the jurisdiction of the federal government in those specifically delineated powers have supreme authority over the states, over cities, over localities, that the federal government, in particular when it comes to immigration and immigration enforcement, clearly has jurisdiction and has supremacy over state and local cities, states, and state and local authority and jurisdiction. I mean, this is going to go to the Supreme Court, and Brandon Johnson is going to get annihilated. There's no legal or constitutional leg for him to stand on. But that doesn't matter now. What matters now is that this is becoming anarchy, disorder, and he is inflaming. I mean, you want to talk about pouring gasoline on the fire. So not only is he now saying violence will be met with violence, not only is he now saying that as far as he's concerned, ICE agents are now a rogue military that is occupying Chicago, and that Chicago is now under a military occupation with ICE agents as a kind of paramilitary group and with the National Guard troops now being sent. But then he made an incredibly bizarre, unhinged, and I got to tell you, an unbelievably reckless and dangerous statement. Here it is. Roll cut 5A. Mike.
When it comes to black, brown, white, Asian, working class people, this president has not only been a disappointment, but again, he has worked hard to relitigate the Civil War. And we're not going to stand for it. But she has no idea what she's talking about. And there are protests that are happening all over the country that are demanding justice in this moment.
Now, he was referring to Kristi Noem, and Kristi Noem was complaining. We talked about this on yesterday's show, where ICE vehicles during a routine patrol, this was in Broadview, Illinois, it's a suburb, just west of Chicago, in which this was a clear ambush. 10 vehicles, most likely belonging to Antifa, surrounded these ICE cars and ICE agents, and then deliberately boxed them in, and then they began to ram the vehicles, the ICE vehicles. And one woman who was leading the charge had a semi-assault weapon, and she came out of her car. She was going to, she was lifting putting up the gun, about to shoot, and then ICE agents had to fire defensive shots. And she was shot, but non-life-threatening wounds. She had to go to the hospital. Then a massive crowd encircled the ICE agents. And they were yelling, screaming, threatening them, calling them all kinds of profanities. A riot was on the verge of exploding, of erupting. And now, and I'll play the cut a little bit later, we have the actual dispatch call, where it was ordered by the police chief, by this mayor, for the Chicago Police Department to not assist or help ICE or Customs and Border Protection agents who were desperately requesting help. So they left them isolated and on their own and twisting in the wind. Now, he then doubled down. And so yesterday, he made another press conference on top of this comment. And here is what he said, quote, and I'm quoting now directly, "I say very candidly that the right wing in this country want a rematch of the Civil War. I want that to set in right now because the President of the United States of America has declared war on the people of Chicago and people across America." This, I got to be honest with you. Trump's got to move. If he doesn't move, things are going to get very ugly very fast in Chicago. ICE agents are already being shot at. They're already being assaulted. There are now bounties on their heads. Many of them now say that they're receiving death threats. They're being doxxed. Their addresses are now being made public. I got to say this. I can't believe it's coming out of my mouth, but I got to say it. I got to call it the way I see it. If I'm not here to speak the truth, then what's the point of me being behind this microphone? I think the moonbats in Chicago are crazier than the moonbats here in Boston. I always thought it was a race between us and California, to be honest. Okay? Who's crazier, Massachusetts or, the People's Republic of Massachusetts or California, right? California. But holy mackerel, holy shamoly. No, man, I could see, that's where Obama sprang from. Oh, that's where Valerie Jarrett sprang from. Oh, David Axelrod and that whole Chicago gang and Bill Ayers and now it'll Saul Alinsky. Now I see the breeding grounds for people like this. I'm telling you, they're crazy. Their moonbats are crazier than our moonbats. And I'm telling you, that's saying something. So you now have Brandon Johnson. This is a legal insurrection. That's what he's now done. He's now telling ICE, kiss off. The federal government has no authority in Chicago. I'm setting up ICE-free zones. And if I see ICE or Customs and Border Protection or the National Guard, then I'm telling you I'm authorizing citizens to disobey the law and to call the police, and we will do everything in our power to expel you from our city. Now, first of all, he is literally shielding rapists, gangbangers, sex traffickers, child molesters, murderers. That's who they're going after. MS-13, Trent, or Aragua? That's who you're defending? But as I said in my opening, and this now bears repeating, okay? He's now doubled down. In fact, he's actually tripled down, where he now says that Trump and the center right now want a rematch of the Civil War. And that essentially, as he put it, Trump has declared war on the people of Chicago and people across America. Now, you don't get more inflammatory or incendiary or frankly insane than this. I'm telling you, the guy is crazy. Okay, he's nutty as a fruitcake. Yet, look, again, I'm going to call it the way I see it. We all know who wants a civil war. And we all know who's turning this cold civil war slowly but surely into an increasingly hot civil war against America. And that's Democrats like Pritzker and like Brandon Johnson. And again, as I said in my opening monologue, but it bears repeating, history is repeating itself. This is now almost, just take it's a different section of the country. It's not South Carolina. It's not the South. It's the Midwest and Chicago. And increasingly now the Pacific Northwest. It's Washington State, Oregon, and then you go all the way down to California, obviously on the West Coast. But that's now the hotbed of insurrectionism. And this is now an insurrectionist mayor. But Confederate Democrats, what happened in 1860? Just a 30-second history lesson. They wanted to hold on to their cheap slave labor. And the moment they thought that Lincoln and the Republicans, who were elected in 1860, were going to take all of that cheap slave labor away, boom, they launched a civil war. First an insurrection, and then the insurrection led to actual all-out violence. So now, today, it's not slave labor, it's illegal, cheap, illegal labor. And so what they've now done, when you really think about it, again, it's a repeat of history. They have now created a confederacy of so-called, and I'm putting this in air quotes, quote unquote, sanctuary cities and sanctuary states, in order to defy the federal government, to obstruct and impede the federal government, which is now guilty, literally, of nothing more than enforcing federal law. Remember, Trump was elected to secure the border. He's got a full Democratic mandate, a constitutional legal mandate to secure the border and to deport illegal aliens. That's what they're opposing. And actually, he's really only focusing on the worst of the worst, the most violent criminal illegal aliens in this first phase. And so, just like in 1860, the Democrats started a civil war because they didn't like the way the people voted, that they elected Lincoln and the Republicans, and that Republicans wanted to free their slaves. Now in 2025, the Democrats increasingly, let's be honest, there is so much violence now that the Democrats are inciting and supporting that now they are itching to start a civil war because Republicans want to deport their cheap illegal labor. Now, let me just say this, okay? Because this needs to be said. ICE facilities now are being attacked across the country, but especially in Portland and Chicago. They are being surrounded. ICE vehicles are being firebombed. Objects are being thrown at them. ICE agents are being shot at. Objects, rocks, bottles are being thrown at them. ICE agents are being hit, beaten. Some are being sent to the hospital. A couple weeks ago in the Chicago area, a crazed anti-ICE activist, an illegal alien as well, he was both, literally plowed his car into an ICE agent and was dragging him on the street underneath the car. You now have gangbangers, gangs. There was one just arrested, what was it, in Chicago yesterday? The Latin Kings, one of their top people, put a bounty, a $10,000 bounty to kill a prominent ICE agent. And he was arrested for that. You have Antifa terrorists now who are roaming, literally roaming the streets of Los Angeles, the streets of Chicago, the streets of Portland, the streets of Seattle. And they're being encouraged. These are the brown shirts now of the Democratic Party to not just block streets and surround and attack ICE buildings, but to literally attack ICE agents and anyone who supports ICE. And the police are not arresting Antifa. I'm going to play you cuts. You now have conservative journalists who are being beaten to a pulp, who cover these ICE, what do you want to call them, riots and violent protests. And when they find out you're a conservative journalist, they literally beat you to a pulp. And either the police do nothing and allow Antifa to get away with it, or they arrest the victims of Antifa. So local law enforcement is now bending the knee to these insurrectionist mayors and governors. And they are essentially now working hand in glove with Antifa. And then you have one other thing, and I'm going to talk about it more in detail, I promise. But this is another huge scandal involving another Democrat. This time, Jay Jones. He is the Democratic nominee for Attorney General in Virginia. And there are now text messages that he wrote to a Republican lawmaker in the state house in Virginia. This was a couple of years ago, but these messages have now become public, where he literally said, there was a Republican speaker at the House at the time, that if there were two bullets, and there was the Republican speaker, his name is Todd Gilbert, Hitler and Pol Pot, both bullets he would give to Todd Gilbert. 617-266-6868. Okay. You can text the Kuhner Man, 70470. 70470. This is from 781. And I think 781 hit the nail right on the head. Jeff, all of this has Barack Hussein Obama's fingerprints all over the Chicago insurrection. Oh, I think there's no question. I think there's no question. And the media is fomenting it as well. And what they want, this is what they want. They want nightly images on the news. Look at Trump's presidency. Oh, the rioting, the tear gas, the division, the troops having to be sent in. Oh, my God, the streets are burning. This is all Trump's America. So that's why now they just, the rhetoric, they just keep inciting and inciting, ratcheting. Now, I just want to make one last point, and I want to go to the phone lines about Jay Jones. So here is a man, and this is tied in exactly to what's happening to the state of our country. He is the Democratic nominee for Attorney General in Virginia. Okay? You want to talk about another whack job. This guy, it's frightening. And so in 2022, the Virginia House of Delegates, as it's called, basically their state house, Republicans were delivering speeches, listen to this, honoring the memory of a recently deceased Democrat. In fact, he was a black Democrat who was a moderate Democrat. And so Republicans were getting up and saying he was a good man. We agreed with him on some issues. We reached across the aisle. He was a statesman, on and on. So they're eulogizing the guy. They're praising the guy. Jay Jones texts a member of the state house who happens to be a Republican. Carrie Kuhner, I believe is how you pronounce her last name. Anyway, he texts her And he says that he's getting nauseous listening to all these Republicans praise this now dead black Democrat. And he starts to say, literally, from the beginning, he goes, if any of them died, if any of them die before I do, all these Republicans speaking, I want to go and I'm going to clean it up a little bit, urinate on their graves. And she writes back saying, what is wrong with you? And then he won't stop. He then texts her back saying, no, listen to me. The speaker at the time, his name is Todd Gilbert. He was a Republican Speaker of the House. He goes, I'm telling you, if you had Todd Gilbert, Hitler, and Pol Pot, i.e. two of the greatest mass murderers of the 20th century, and you only have 2 bullets, he goes, I'm telling you, I would choose 2 bullets to the head for Todd Gilbert every time. Every time. Put 2 bullets into Todd Gilbert and forget Hitler and Pol Pot. She then texts back again, literally, you're sick. What? Are you okay? You want to assassinate this man? You want to put 2 bullets in his head? He's worse than Hitler? He's worse than Pol Pot? This psycho, this animal, this savage, then texts back, not only do I want to put 2 bullets into Todd Gilbert, he then talks about Gilbert's wife, Jennifer, and they had 2 young, at the time, this was a couple years ago, they had 2 young children, one age 2, one age 5. He calls them little fascists. Little fascists. And he said, they should die. The mother, Jennifer, should watch her 2 children die in her arms. And maybe if she loses her 2 little fascist children, if they die in her arms, that's the only way to get these Republicans to change maybe their policy positions. Now, it has rocked the race in Virginia for AG. It is beyond outrageous. Frankly, it is sick. Okay, it's sickening. But it's not just that these comments are sickening, disgusting, and abominable. And by the way, it shows you what kind of a guy Jay Jones is. But it also shows you this is what the Democrats really think. You think he's the only one that's saying stuff like this? I bet you they say this all the time, and here's how I know. And this brings back full circle to what we're talking about. When Charlie Kirk was assassinated, and you saw all of these Democrats, I mean millions of them, cheering, gloating, celebrating, literally partying, did any prominent Democrat, go out and condemn their own voters? Did any Democratic leader come out and say, you people are sick, stop. He was a human being, for God's sake, and you're celebrating and cheering his death? What is wrong with you? Not a single Democrat condemned it. Here, with Jay Jones. Now, by the way, just so that you know, Jay Jones, knows Todd Gilbert. At the time, they'd have lunch together. He knew Todd Gilbert's wife, Jennifer. He knew the 2 children. They would bring the kids to the State House in Virginia. They played with Jay Jones or would say hi to him or whatever. And you're calling for their death, for their execution? Not a single Democrat politician or Democrat leader has called for Jay Jones to step down and leave the race, saying these comments disqualify you. You don't have the judgment. Frankly, you don't have the character. To me, I don't think you have the mental stability. There's something mentally wrong with you, man, to be the next Attorney General of Virginia. The Democrats are silent. Silent. And I'll tell you why they're silent. Because they secretly fantasize about murdering Republicans all the time. I'm sorry, I got to call it the way I see it. So this is shocking to Republicans that this has now come out. It's shocking to independents. I'm telling you, to many Democrats, like, yeah, okay, yeah. Yeah, me too. Yeah, 2 bullets. You've got, let's take Mike Johnson or Donald Trump or I don't care, whoever. Jeff Kuhner, take your pick. You know, that's Bill in Sudbury. I'm telling you, that's Bill in Sudbury. So you've got a Republican, you've got 2 bullets, and you've got Hitler and Pol Pot. 2 bullets to the Republican any day, every day, all the time, as Jay Jones said. Every day, all the time. What do you want? Stalin and Mao? Kill Todd Gilbert. Hitler and Stalin? Kill Todd Gilbert. That's what he was telling her. Take your combination of mass murdering dictators. You killed a Republican with both bullets. I'm telling you, Democrats say this to each other over and over and over and over again. Or kill their kids. Or I hope their kids die. They're all little fascists anyway. So, to bring it full circle, when someone like Brandon Johnson says, let's take it to the streets, ICE is subhuman. Customs and Border Protection are subhuman. Trump and his administration are subhuman. Conservatives, MAGA, Trump supporters are subhuman. And we're not recognizing their election victory. We're not recognizing their democratic legitimacy. We're not recognizing their constitutional legal authority. We're going to turn the whole city basically into an ICE-free zone. And you come in and resistance is going to be met with violence is going to be met with violence. The resistance is going to stop you. And if it means shooting you or attacking you or murdering you or putting a bounty on you or rioting or surrounding you or blocking you or impeding you, whatever we have to do, we're going to do it. That's the state now of the Democratic Party. They hate us. They truly hate us. They fantasize about murdering us. Not all, but many of them. And they hate Trump, and they hate his election, and they hate his agenda, like Lincoln in 1860. That I'm telling you, this is the scary part. That's why this whole Jay Jones thing has shaken me. Yeah, kill him. 2 bullets. Every one of them. 2 bullets. And no one calls this guy to step down? You gotta leave the race? Like, I'm sorry, this is just beyond the pale? In the wake of the Charlie Kirk assassination, where millions of Democrats literally cheered it on and said, yeah, keep going. Why are you stopping? If there is going to be a second civil war, it will be the Democrats that will bring it. And it's because they have so dehumanized us that now shooting us, killing us like in 1860, it's becoming second nature to them. Now, what I'm doing now, this is the fire bell in the night. Trump's people are listening. You have to act now. This is a cancer. You can't allow it to continue to spread. And I can't believe I'm saying this. Stuff is coming out of my mouth this morning I never thought would come out of my mouth. The previous mayor, Lori Lightfoot, was such a disaster of a mayor. I said, just get rid of her. Nobody can be worse than Lori Lightfoot. The people of Chicago, the communists of Chicago, Barack Obama and his gang have actually found someone not just more incompetent and worse, but honestly, and this is the scary part, look at his eyes. Look at the way Brandon Johnson speaks. The stuff that comes out of his mouth. He's dangerously unhinged. He's crazy. I'm telling you, he's crazy. You look at Mamdani, he's crazy. You look at Michelle Wu, she's crazy. You look at the mayor of Portland. Crazy. Crazy people can tear a country apart. Crazy people can get people killed. Especially when you put them in positions of power and positions of authority. Invoke the Insurrection Act, send in the National Guard, and if Brandon Johnson does his ice-free zone routine again, arrest him on the spot. Agree, disagree, Bud in Fall River. Thanks for holding, Bud, and welcome.
Hey, how you doing, Jeff?
Very good. How are you, Bud?
Oh, I'm good. First time call, long time listener.
Welcome, Bud. Welcome.
Thank you. I finally get through too. This thing with like the Antifa and stuff. Now he declared them a domestic terrorist. Why isn't Bondi doing her job, having all of her attorney generals prosecute these people, go out and grab these people if they are a domestic terrorist group, if they are classified as a domestic terrorist group? I'm just not getting it. Like, we're allowing these Antifa people outside these facilities, shooting them up, rioting, throwing stuff, hurting agents, hurting people, hurting inmates, and nothing's being done about it. I'm like flabbergasted over it.
But look, the long and short of it is, in a nutshell, she's not up to the job. She's just not. He's got to get a different attorney general. He's getting increasingly frustrated with her. I'm going to give her about another 2-3 months, and I think he's going to have no choice but to cut her loose. This thing in Chicago, when it really starts to spiral out of control, and we're very close now. Portland, same thing, very close. When this thing really starts to spiral out of control, when we're not talking about hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people surrounding ICE vehicles or surrounding ICE facilities and, throwing tear gas and rocks and glass bottles and using batons and punching ICE agents in the face or shots being fired. But when you're talking then thousands and thousands, because that's what Brandon Johnson now wants. He wants a full-scale insurrection on the streets. Once it gets to the thousands, and it will, he's going to have to get rid of her and put in a new attorney general. So, but look, I think there's no question now. She's a nice woman. She looks good on Fox News. Let her go to Fox. Let her be a legal analyst. But this is not the job for her. Certainly not at this hour, at this time. And, Bud, look, you're not 100, as I like to say, you're 1,000% correct. If you're a domestic terrorist organization, then be treated as a domestic terrorist organization. If Al-Qaeda shows up to impede ICE or surround an ICE facility or attack ICE agents or attack ICE vehicles, Al-Qaeda would be arrested. ISIS would be arrested. How come Antifa isn't being arrested? And their leaders have to be put in jail. Their networks have to be dismantled. And we have to crack down on them with everything that we have because the Democrats are using Antifa. It's clear now. As their brown shirts, their shock troops. They're using them. Those are the allies of the Democratic Party to go out and instigate violence and have violent confrontations with ICE to block them or prevent them from making any more deportations. And frankly, to terrorize ICE and anybody who gets in their way. So I'm with you. I don't know what they're waiting for. And that's the problem. When you have a cautious, timid attorney general, she's scared. Then if the DOJ, look, the DOJ cannot be afraid. When you're up against these thugs and insurrectionists, and that's what this is now, this is becoming an insurrection. You need an attorney general who's a pit bull. You need a fighter. You don't need Pam Bondi. Bud, am I wrong?
100% right, Jeff. 100% right. And also, like, the other thing I want to say is, like, if people are listening, like the Trump administration, Fall River, Massachusetts needs ICE bad. This city is loaded with illegals. Loaded. They own businesses. They own houses. It's become an infestation. Let's put it that way.
Well, but you're right, and this is now the danger. Okay, and you're right. You don't think that Michelle Wu is looking at Brandon Johnson? I'm just going to use Michelle Wu, Boston, as an example, but the mayor of L.A., Eric Adams in New York City, Mamdani is certainly looking at Brandon Johnson, the mayor of Portland, the mayor of Seattle, the mayor of San Francisco. I could go on and on. They're saying, whoa, if this guy can get away with putting up ice-free zones, we're going to do the exact same thing. And it's not just, you see, he's not just saying not on city property, which is also illegal, but now he's saying private businesses. In other words, if I don't recognize, in other words, as you said, illegals own businesses or businesses hire illegals. According to Brandon Johnson, they could tell ICE at the door, you can't come in. I don't recognize your authority. Now, can you imagine? That's anarchy. Again, it's insurrection. I don't know what else to say. That's literally, that's anarchy and insurrection. So, and then ICE says, no, to hell, we're going in there. Well, Johnson's going to say, well, I'm sorry now. You're in violation of my executive order. I'm calling in the Chicago police. I want you to arrest ICE. So what? ICE agents and Chicago police are going to start shooting at each other? Or what's he going to say? I order now local militias, Antifa militias, to go in there and take on ICE because ICE is the one behaving illegally? Because now an illegal alien business owner is saying you can't come onto my property, onto my business? Or I have illegals that work for me. I'm not allowing you to come in. This business is an ICE-free zone. Do you see how effing insane this is now getting? Now, he gets away with this. This is going to go all over the country. Now, I'm telling you, that's 1860. That's 1859, 1860. Lincoln gets elected in 1860. And that's exactly what happens. In county after county, eventually city after city, and then it was state after state, where they said, no, we don't recognize federal authority. Get lost. No, out. You can't do out. And that the argument was that the federal government no longer has jurisdiction or authority over federal buildings or federal assets or anything to do with federal authority. So Fort Sumter was, it was a military base. And Lincoln said, well, I have the right to send troops there. And the South said, no, you can't come in. Like today, you can't send in ICE or you can't send in the National Guard. No, that's what I'm telling you. No one has made that argument since 1860. That's the argument they are now making. And this is, by the way, this is not a unique perspective. There are hundreds and hundreds now of legal constitutional scholars sounding the alarm, saying the Supreme Court must step in yesterday. You cannot allow this to stand. We don't have a freaking country. Now, remember what the Kuhner man predicted when Trump won. I said, watch. The Democrats, like in 1860, are now going to try to burn the country down. They're going to try to burn the country down. Destroy the country, destroy the government, the federal government. Trump has to act. He has to act decisively. He has to act swiftly. He has to act now and quickly before it's too late. And I'm telling you, Pam Bondi is not the person for the job. I'm sorry. I'm just calling it the way I see it. Let me ask all of you. With this clash now with these insurrectionist mayors, do you have confidence in Pam Bondi? That's what I'm talking about. 7:20 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. Okay, this is now breaking on the wires. Trump is essentially giving the he's giving the middle finger to Brandon Johnson and that slob, Golden Corral, Pritzker, the pigster, over at Illinois. And to the mayor of Portland and to the governor of Oregon. So he has already He has sent in the California National Guard, which was federalized several months ago. He's telling the judge to go to hell. He's telling the governor to go to hell and the mayor of Portland to go to hell. He has put boots on the ground. So there are now National Guard troops in Portland. Trump is saying, sue me. I don't care. Go to the Supreme Court. I don't care. I'm done. I'm just done. And so there are now National Guard troops, several hundred of them, that have been deployed or are being deployed to protect this ICE facility that is under siege in downtown Portland. They're there. And apparently now up to 400 National Guard troops are now being deployed in Chicago itself. He's now basically daring Brandon Johnson. You want to shoot on the National Guard? You want to order Chicago police to shoot on the guard? They're not going to obey your orders. No one is going to obey your stupid executive order. Your illegal, unconstitutional, immoral executive order. So, no, I'm not going to allow you to be an insurrectionist. I'm sending in the National Guard. So he's basically telling Brandon Johnson, okay, you want to play poker? Let's play. And now Trump is basically going all in. 617-266-6868. So let me ask all of you, what should Trump do now regarding this radical insurrectionist mayor in Chicago? Should he continue to send in the National Guard as he's doing? Should Brandon Johnson now be arrested for obstruction of justice and for literally waging an insurrection and impeding and blocking ICE from enforcing law and fulfilling its fundamental legal duties? Is it time to start putting people like Johnson in jail? And the bigger question, is it now time for President Donald Trump to address the country and tell Democrats it's either put up or shut up? I will not allow you to continue this war on the federal government, on federal authority, on ICE, and on federal law enforcement. Whose side are you on? 617-266-6868. Lines are jammed. Andy in Milford. Thanks for holding, Andy, and welcome.
Hey, good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Andy.
Hi. Jeff, I've looked at this thing in multiple sources, multiple platforms, and I've taken in a lot of information on this up to now, and I'm just going to call some balls and strikes as I see them. What I have concluded we're living through right now is the attempt of the Democrats to implement the Podesta plan. And everything that you've talked about this morning, just it fits that to a T. That Podesta plan is what they're trying to do. Now, there's a final leg in that plan, Jeff, that is very evil and very dangerous that we just need to be aware of, and Team Trump needs to be aware of, and that is false flags. They are going to attempt to do false flags. They desperately want the propaganda value of the blood of their own people flowing in the streets. And I'm very pleased with what just broke about Trump going ahead and sending National Guard anyway. President Trump does need to go ahead and invoke the Insurrection Act. If he does that, this thing, I believe, can be shut down before it gets to that point. And very quick, because Pam Bondi came into this situation, the structure of the DOJ, the Deputy Attorney General is the real power behind the throne that calls a lot of shots. One simple move Team Trump can make right now to fix a lot of what is wrong there is they can take Todd Blanche out of that deputy AG position and put Ed Martin in that position. That'll get a lot moving in DOJ that needs to get moving.
Oh, I think it's a great suggestion. Andy, I think it's a dynamite suggestion. I mean, you know me, I want her gone, but at a minimum, get a very good deputy who's aggressive, who's not afraid, who's proactive, who's going to take the fight to these insurrectionists and these radicals. Honestly, you're right. The DOJ's got to start moving their rear end. Andy, very quickly, because we have less than a minute. What do you make of Brandon Johnson? He said it now 2 or 3 times, that Trump and the right in this country want to refight the Civil War, and that we've declared war on the people of Chicago. Why is he saying this? Why is he fanning the flames? What's your theory?
What he's doing, Jeff, is he's projecting. He's projecting on us what he's actually...
Yeah, what he's actually wants to do and what he's planning to do. Andy, I agree with you. Andy, as always, very good call. Okay, you can text the Kuhner Man, 70470, 70470. I want to read to you a text before I go right back to the phone lines. It's from 617. And you tell me if you agree or disagree. Great audience of Kuhner Country. Jeff, here is what President Trump should do. Send the National Guard into Chicago and Portland. Order the Guard to assist ICE. Invoke the Insurrection Act. If any of the politicians in Chicago or Portland obstruct one more time, arrest them and remand them without bail, send them to Gitmo to await trial. In other words, send in the National Guard, which he's doing now, order the Guard to assist ICE now in every single raid. So if local law enforcement won't protect them from Antifa and these other thugs, that's exactly what federal troops will do. Invoke the Insurrection Act. In other words, declare a state of national emergency. And then if the mayor of Chicago or the mayor of Portland or, Golden Corral, Pritzker, or Kotek, the governor of Oregon, whatever, if they now obstruct one more time, bang, arrest them on the spot, remand them without bail, and send them off to Guantanamo. What say you? Agree? Disagree? At a minimum, if you don't want to remand them without bail or send them to Gitmo, I do think now they need to start getting arrested. Because what they're doing now is beyond reckless and beyond dangerous. Agree? Disagree? Barbara in Westport. Thanks for holding, Barbara, and welcome.
Hi, good morning.
Hi, Barbara.
I'm a little nervous, but I have a couple of things. One is today I heard that the National Guard cannot arrest anyone. So when they're outside of ICE, they actually can't arrest anyone. But I don't know if that will change. The other thing is, and this is kind of a weird thing, but you know how they told the police not to go and help out ICE?
Yes.
I'm wondering if you can take that and put it on a commercial and just put it all over. Do you want this coming to your city or state? Because there's a lot of people who have people either in the military, ICE, police officers. If they can do it there, they can do it anywhere. And they're saying now that they didn't really do that, but we all, if you didn't hear it, you saw it written. So I'm just wondering if Trump or someone can, because the regular news, ABC, NBC, CBS, doesn't show anything like that. And the way they slant things, someone like my mom would believe that, would believe the ABC, NBC, CBS story instead of looking into it a little bit more and, realizing because she's a staunch Democrat, even though I can point out all these wrongs. And Even the fact that illegals get more money than she does, and she worked 70 years. It's just crazy.
It is. No, it's disgusting. You're completely right, by the way. They get more money than your mother does. And your mother has worked, as you said, 70 years. Many people haven't worked that long, but, they've worked 40, 50 years, 60 years even. And the illegals get much, not a little, they get much more. Barbara, look, just to answer your two questions, and by the way, for your first time calling, you've done a great job. So you really shouldn't be nervous. Barbara, number one, if Trump invokes the Insurrection Act, then the National Guard, federal troops can arrest people. So that's why people are saying he needs to invoke the Insurrection Act. It's not just going to give him the authority to deploy federal troops against these sanctuary cities and against these insurrectionist mayors and governors, but literally the National Guard or federal troops will then have the power to arrest. Okay, that's number one. Number two, let me play you the 911 dispatcher. Okay, let me just play it for you. We have the audio. It's come out. Now, remember, Pritzker said that was a lie. Pritzker right away said, oh, no. Now, remember, the ICE vehicles, this happened on Saturday morning. They were on a routine patrol. In fact, they were heading to arrest Tren de Aragua gangbangers. Okay, these are literally murderers, drug traffickers. They run prostitution rings, sex trafficking, you name it. They're surrounded by 10 vehicles, and they're boxed in. And then the cars start ramming, and we have the video footage of them ramming the ICE vehicles. So now they're ramming them. Now, the ICE agents that's considered, by the way, deadly force. Under the law, it's considered deadly force. If you take your car and start ramming somebody, that's considered almost like taking a gun and shooting at them. It's deadly force. So ICE has every right now to respond. Anybody, frankly, would have any right to respond. So they're firing now defensive shots. One of the women who was leading the charge with an assault weapon, she gets shot. She's going to live, but she's in the hospital. She's being taken to the hospital. Now a crazy mob, an inflamed mob, because of Johnson and Pritzker, now have surrounded these ICE vehicles. They're saying, kill them. F the mother effers up. On stuff I can't say on the air. They're shouting obscenities, profanities. The crowd is now closing in around ICE. ICE now says, we need backup. We need local law enforcement. We've been attacked. We've been surrounded. Now the mob is getting crazy and hostile. Please send in reinforcements. We don't want to start shooting on the crowd. It's going to be a massacre. Here's the 911 dispatcher telling Chicago police, local police, Chicago police, do not go. Stand down. Do not go to the scene. Here it is, Barbara. Roll cut 1B, Mike.
And again, per the chief of patrol, we have all the units that per 999. Chief of Patrol said all units clear out from there. We're not sending anybody over to that location. All right, and 999, just to confirm, 39th Police in Kedzie, they were saying that they were being surrounded by that large crowd, and they were requesting the police were not sending. I'm waving off all the cars heading to 39th Police in Kedzie.
Again, those are the orders we're being given.
Orders are being given. Stand down. Clear out. Remember, there were some police there. They said, no, clear out. Just get out. Clear out. So, Barbara, not only, to me, this is unspeakable what they did. Dereliction of duty. Letting fellow law enforcement literally twist in the wind and leave them utterly exposed and vulnerable to an ambush and God knows what else. But think about this. What the mayor wants, what the police chief or the police patrol chief, however they call him, wanted a massacre. They either wanted ICE agents to be attacked and killed, or, for them, I think even better from a PR point of view, have ICE agents fire shots into the crowd and kill these Antifa or anti-ICE far-left militants, these protesters, and then say, look what ICE did. Look what ICE did. They just unleashed a massacre. And try to turn public opinion against ICE. Barbara, these people are sick. They're out of control and they're dangerous. Final word to you, Barbara.
I'm wondering why he wasn't fired. Well, they're not going to fire him because they agree with him. But as a patrol officer, you swear that you're going to help public, okay? Even if it's just the public. But these could be friends of you.
Oh, I know. Could be family members. God knows. I'm with you. No, they didn't fire the police chief. Well, they can't fire him because he was acting on their orders. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, people. Mike was saying, why are you blaming the buffet restaurant, the buffet restaurant, Golden Corral? And I'm like, that's my nickname for Pritzker, Mike. You know, the guy's really overweight. He's obese. He loves to hit the buffet, i.e. Golden Corral. You know, and apparently he's the same as Chris Christie, by the way. I mean, they'll hit that Golden Corral, I'm talking for 2 hours. And, you know, to give Golden Corral their due, apparently they lay out, I don't know the quality of the food. I've never eaten a Golden Corral. But let me put it this way, a lot of choice. There's a lot of variety. You want turkey, you want chicken nuggets, you want steak, you want lasagna, you name it, mashed potatoes, mac and cheese, different kinds of pies. I mean, you could go down for 5, 6, 7, 8 sittings. So, you know, a guy like Pritzker or Manja, Chris Christie, they could sit there for a good 2 hours. And it just, you know, plate after plate after plate, helping after helping after helping. Now, the reason why I'm mentioning Jay Jones again, because to understand the poll question, this is what Jay Jones, the Democratic nominee for Attorney General in Virginia, this is what he text messaged to a fellow legislator, Republican, Carrie Kuhner. This is what she wrote. This is what he wrote, forgive me, about the then Speaker of the House, Todd Gilbert. 3 people, 2 bullets. Gilbert, Hitler, and Pol Pot. Gilbert gets 2 bullets to the head. Spoiler, he continues. Put Gilbert in the crew with the 2 worst people you know, and he receives both bullets every time. And then when she said, this is sick, this is disgusting, you know, on and on, he said, no, I mean, he piled on. He said, and the wife, Jennifer, she's got to die. And their 2 little children, as he called them, the 2 little fascists, they should die in her arms. This is what he wrote. Now, so far, not one major Democratic politician or political leader has called for Jay Jones to drop out of the race. I mean, if these comments are not disqualifying, honest to God, I don't know what is. Seriously, I don't know what is. Now, the reason why I'm mentioning this is the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's Quality Roofing, Siding, and Windows. And this is going to be a toughie, my friends. This is not going to be easy. Who is more dangerous? A, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, who ordered Chicago police to not protect ICE officers? Or B, Virginia Attorney General candidate Jay Jones, who publicly fantasizes about killing Republicans? A or B? Who's more dangerous? Bolshevik Brandon Johnson, Mr. Insurrection, or Jay Jones, 2 bullets in the back of the head? Who do you think is more, to you, more of a public menace and more dangerous? I mean, they're both despicable human beings, don't get me wrong. I would have to go with A if I was voting in this poll, only because Johnson is a mayor with the power to foment insurrection and violence. So, yeah, I mean, the other guy, could be attorney general and just, start shooting up Republicans. So he's also a danger. But if I got to go, I got to go with Johnson on this one. Sorry, Brandon Johnson. I would go Brandon Johnson, but that's me. I want to hear from you. You can vote on our webpage, WRKO.com/Kuhner, WRKO.com/Kuhner, KUHN is in National ER. You can also vote via X, and man, was I active on X last night. My handle there, all one word, at the Kuhner Report. KUHN is in National ER, at the Kuhner Report. By the way, many of you are texting the Kuhner man. Jeff, the food sucks at Golden Corral. Jeff, trust me, you're not missing much at the Golden Corral. Well, apparently Pritzker likes it, and so does Chris Christie, Manja. And I think it's also because I know Pritzker inherited a fortune. By the way, he's completely incompetent. He's a very wealthy man, but this is all, he's a trust fund baby. And he inherited a fortune. They didn't want him to run the business. You can see why. The guy's completely incompetent. But he's also a bit of a cheapskate. If you can be a cheap billionaire, Pritzker is a cheap billionaire. So apparently he and Christie like the Golden Corral because apparently it's not that expensive. Mike, can you look it up for me? What is it? I think it's $20 all you can eat or something like that. $19.99. And some buffets put a time limit. I know in Vegas they do that, like an hour or 90 minutes. I think Golden Corral, it's 2, 3, 4 hours. A guy like Pritzker, outside of fomenting insurrections, this is the way he likes to relax. He goes to that Golden Corral buffet and he hits it wave after wave after wave after wave. Maria in Ludlow. Thanks for holding, Maria, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Maria?
Super tired. Just finished a 16-hour shift at the ER. On my way home.
I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you nurses do it. I really don't. By the way, Maria, have you ever gone to the Golden Corral?
Long time ago.
What'd you think?
Years.
What'd you think?
I prefer my Portuguese food.
All right. Go ahead, Maria. The floor is yours.
Thank you. I just wanted to come here and say to you, Steph, I am so sick and tired of all this bull crap going on. So sick and tired. There's no accountability whatsoever. Let's be honest and real. If this was everything that's happening, if it was the other way around, do you think this would even be happening? These liberal Democrats would be dancing circles around the Republicans like they always do. I feel like the Republicans walk around on eggshells. How is everything that has come out with Tulsi Gabbard and not one single arrest? All these people, these ICE, God love them, getting shot and not one single arrest. All these mayors, all these governors, and nobody's getting arrested. Let's be real. They should all be in jail. They are accomplices to this. Antifa is a domestic terrorist organization. They should all be in jail. None of this should be happening. It's mind-boggling to me. Somebody needs to be arrested. Somebody needs to have the cojones and say, enough. This is what's going to happen. Trump needs to put that Insurrection Act today, like yesterday, and forget what anybody says, forget what the news outlet says, because no matter what he does, no matter what he says, they will always talk bad about him, about the Republicans. Enough with your stupid meetings, with your investigations. Take action. Grow a flipping spine and do so. I'm so sick and tired of this. This is so atrocity that these people are getting away with everything. And nobody. Pam Bondi, you need to go. My 18-year-old could do your job blinded with a freaking thing in her eyes, over her eyes. I am sick and tired of her. She's useless. She has no spine. Trump needs to cut his losses. Let her go. Find somebody else. Jesus Christ, I will go in there and start arresting people if I could. I am sick of this. Sick of this. Republicans need to grow a spine. Republicans need to do their job. Enough with all these little threats, with all these little meetings, with all these little whatever they're doing. All they do is talk. I'm sick of talking. Do your job. The government's shutting down. Hooray. Great. All of these politicians should not get paid one flippin' penny because they're not doing their job. They're not protecting the American people. They shouldn't get one penny of my taxpayer money. They're useless. They're all useless. I'm so aggravated, Jeff. You have no idea.
Oh, no, I don't blame you. No, really. Look, Maria, you're right. And look, you're right about the shutdown completely. But I want to stay focused on your larger point. Look, I'll play the cuts later in the show. You have journalists, conservative journalists, who are just there literally covering a story in Portland. It's one of the biggest stories in the world. They are surrounding this ICE facility. They are pelting it with rocks, with bottles, with objects. They're attacking ICE officers. They're attacking ICE vehicles. They're preventing them from bringing in illegals so they can be processed and deported and detained. They're literally impeding the ability of ICE to do their jobs. And the building has been under siege for weeks and weeks and weeks. So conservative journalists literally just show up and they're just like with their camera. They're just there filming and asking questions like, why are you here? What is the purpose of this protest? And right there in front of the camera, they're getting beaten to a pulp by Antifa thugs. I'm talking beaten black and blue. And the police either don't arrest the Antifa criminals, these terrorists, or they arrest the victims, saying that they're the ones instigating. So it's a racket. It's a scam. You have the mayor of Portland has clearly ordered the police department in Portland. You don't arrest Antifa no matter what they do. They can shoot at the ICE buildings. They can throw rocks at the ICE buildings. They can assault ICE agents. They can destroy their vehicles. They can firebomb their vehicles. They can beat up bystanders or anybody counter-protesters or journalists who happen to be conservative. You don't make any arrests of Antifa. If anything, you arrest anyone protesting Antifa. Where's Pam Bondi? I'm sorry, man. And it's caught on tape. And I don't mean even one. You can say, well, was it doctored? 20 different cameras? 20 different phones? 30 different phones? 40 different phones? You got to see all the video footage that's coming out. When I say it's irrefutable evidence. And the woman what this woman does all day, besides coiffing her hair and getting her nails done and yakking on Fox, I have no idea. I'm telling you. I don't know what this woman does in a day. Honest to God, I don't know. Anyway, Maria, as always, thank you very much for that call. Okay, just so that you know, Mike did some great research. I asked. Breakfast at the Golden Corral, $13. All you can eat. Lunch and dinner. So lunch or dinner, forgive me. Either for lunch or for dinner, it's the same price. Depending on the state, $17 or $18. Now, if you're a Pritzker, if you're a Pigster, $30 and you're good for the whole day. You do all you can eat for breakfast. As Mike said, he probably brings boxes, takeout boxes. And then you'll load up for lunch or you'll load up for dinner. And because he's a cheapskate. He's a cheap billionaire. $30 and you fed a horse. $30 and this guy, he's good for the whole day, man. 617-2. And by the way, you get the takeout boxes. So he just shovels the food into all these boxes and then has the security detail carry it for him. So for $30, this guy's good. 617-266-6868. He's covered in the morning and he's covered for the rest of the day. Jimmy in Dorchester. Thanks for holding, Jimmy, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi,
People
Jimmy.
don't realize there's a large population of Polish in Chicago. A lot of them in the past couple of years have left. They've gone to Connecticut, Arizona, Florida. They've seen what's happening to their city. One of them said to me, one of my relatives from Chicago, if they had wanted the largest zoo in the world, all they had to do was put a fence all around Chicago. And that's the way he left it to me, and he left for Florida. But, Jeff, what I wanted to tell you is something big happened a week ago in Quincy. I went to help out a relative of mine that was ill. I went to a store. I'm not going to name the store because the FBI and the CIA and ICE is working in that area. And they went after a bunch of young individuals. They put them to the ground. They put handcuffs on them. But later on in the afternoon, I went back there. They had this drug dealer because I lost 2 of my nephews from drugs in Quincy in the past 4 years. And I want these people to realize when you lose a loved one and they tell you they're going to be there for your uncle and they're not around, it breaks your heart. And this drug dealer, they grabbed him, they surrounded him at the same store in the afternoon. They took whatever he had in his back pocket. I'm not going to say what kind of weapon he had, but they put him in a vehicle. They called for a tow truck to take away his vehicle. They took everything out of that vehicle, and all the people standing around that I know from Quincy were happy to see, and they were happy they were there. The next day, I go back to get a newspaper for my relative. What do you think happens? There's FBI, ICE chasing a vehicle. The guy's on top of my rear end of my car. It's 2 lanes. I can't go to the other lane because the people are in the other lane. So he's coming on my rear end. They're chasing me, surrounding him. I get up to Hospital Hill in Quincy, where the old hospital is. The FBI came off of Granite Street coming up, and they were behind me in this vehicle behind me. They arrested the guy. I asked one of the FBI, who is this guy? A drug dealer. They put him, took away his weapon, and I'm not going to say what it was. I'm not going to say where the store, because they're probably working in that area. I hope they come to Dorchester, because I noticed my neighbors, the way they're living, they got bars on their windows. And you're living in Dorchester, you got bars on your windows. That's to protect us from the criminals we have in Dorchester. And the man, the governor, saying how safe the state is, they're full of bull.
Well, and Jimmy, just like all I can do is piggyback off of what you're saying, because you're right. Dorchester is very dangerous. But look, I talked about this on X last night. The media in this city and in this state are covering up what happened over the weekend. In Southie, in the south end of Boston, over 100 people, these were anti-police activists, thugs, firebombed, literally lit a police vehicle on fire. And they started to attack other cop cars and other police officers. And then in Randolph, another massive crowd, and they tried to firebomb another police vehicle. They didn't succeed, but they tried. They tried to burn the thing to the ground, burn it up, and they were throwing objects at police cars. They were trying to attack police officers themselves. This wasn't a coincidence. This was a coordinated attack on the police. And you're starting to see this now in every sanctuary city in the country. This is Antifa. This is Black Lives Matter. This is a war on the police, a war on law enforcement, and ultimately a war on Trump and the Trump administration. So when the mayor of Boston, Michelle Wu, who to me is just as crazy as Brandon Johnson, says that Boston is safe, she's lying. When Maura Healey says Massachusetts is a safe state, she's lying. And the media helps them lie by covering it up. Here, look, huge story now that the media in Chicago and the national media, the liberal media, are trying to deliberately sweep under the rug. The ICE agents and the feds just arrested a leader of the Latin Kings in Chicago because he put a $10,000 bounty to murder a prominent ICE agent, a senior ICE agent, who apparently is really spearheading some of these raids. And he said, anybody puts 2 bullets in his head, $10,000. And they arrested the Latin Kings guy. Now, this is who Brandon Johnson is protecting. This is who Pritzker, Golden Corral, is protecting. Okay? This is who the Democrats are protecting. So this is what you want? You want to turn us into Colombia? Is that what you want? Into Mexico? Where these drug cartels just order hits on law enforcement? 2,000, by the way, it's 2,000 for a kidnapping, 10,000 for an actual murder. Like, is this what we want our cities and our country to descend into? Invoke the Insurrection Act, bring in the federal troops. It's time to clean things up. Enough is enough. Because you're right, our cities are not safe. Jimmy, thank you so much for that call. Jeff in Southbridge. Thanks for holding, Jeff, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. First time, long time.
Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you very much. 2 things, Jeff. I'm beside myself, wondering why nothing happens to any of these people. Nobody is held accountable. Nobody is arrested. We talk and talk and talk and talk, but
Jeff, I'm up against a hard break. You're completely right. I want you to finish your point. It's a very important point. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let's go right back to Jeff in Southbridge. He was on absolute fire. Jeff, you were making, I think, the brilliant point and the accurate point. Where are the arrests? It's talk, but nothing ever gets done. No one's ever held accountable. No one's ever arrested. Please pick up where you left off.
Well, Jeff, I'm going to tell you where we get some action. These are federal crimes. These left-wing mayors and governors are committing acts of treason in this country. And we know what the penalty for treason is. I think this should be held under military tribunals. Let the military go in and arrest these people and try them for treason. And once we've done that to a few of these people, maybe it'll set the stage and it'll set the example to discourage and deter others from committing this insanity. This is insanity what's happening in this country. And to top it all off, the media is avoiding it completely. I watched Fox, and this is even including Fox. I watched Fox News last night. They're not making any mention of any of this crap that's going on. None of it. The only thing they showed a very brief segment about was the police cruiser that was burnt in Boston, and they didn't even really make a big deal out of it.
Well, Jeff, because ultimately Fox is corporate media, and corporate media is either in the tank for the Democratic Party, or if you're Fox, you're controlled opposition. That's just the way it rolls. That's why, to be honest, I'll watch certain clips, or Sandy will email me something and there's a clip embedded in it, if I need to use it for the show. But outside of that, I don't watch Fox. I don't watch CNN. I don't watch MSNBC. I do watch Newsmax. It's on in my home. I think they're better than everyone else. But generally, I try to avoid corporate media as much as possible because they're not in the journalism business. They're just not. But to your larger point, look, Jeff, you're completely right. And the question now is, what is this administration going to do about it? That's why I'm urging Trump, and he said it yesterday, he's very open now to invoking the Insurrection Act. He said he's pretty much ready to do it. The moment he invokes the Insurrection Act, it's not just that he can call in the military. It's not just that the military can start making arrests, but exactly to your point, then they can be tried in military tribunals. So you don't have to put up with these crazy left-wing judges in many of these districts or in front of juries that are partisan Democrats. This will then be put in front of a military judge at a military tribunal. And if that happens, they're finished. So, look, I started the show by talking about 1860 because I think there's a lot of similarities now between the insurrectionism that we're seeing today by the Democrats and the insurrectionism we saw, and the treason that we saw by the Democrats in 1860. And what did Lincoln do? He invoked the Insurrection Act. And I believe that Trump is the Lincoln of our time. I think there's no question. I think he's an historic, transformational figure. And by the way, what did the Democrats do to Lincoln? They shot him and killed him. They assassinated him. The Democrats have now tried multiple times to shoot and assassinate Trump. So I think there's a lot of similarities. Lincoln gave birth to the Republican Party. Trump is giving a rebirth to the Republican Party. So, I think there's, again, if you don't study history, you're condemned or doomed to repeat it. And the arguments that the Democrats are making now, just substitute illegal alien, undocumented migrant, but substitute illegal alien for slave or slavery. And it's the exact same arguments. I mean, it's the exact same. So history is repeating itself. Lincoln had to go to the Insurrection Act. I believe Trump has no other choice as well. And I think you're dead on, Jeff. It's now or never. Jeff, thank you very much for that call. Russ, you've been holding patiently. Thank you. And as always, welcome.
First of all, Jeff, thank you for telling it like it is every day on this wonderful show.
Thank you.
I cannot thank you enough.
Thank you, Russ. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Now, first of all, Jeff, let's face it. The Communist Democratic Party is going for broke because they fear Donald Trump. They see they're losing ground. So they're going for broke. They will create as much chaos as possible. I don't believe they're stupid enough to think that they can win this ultimately, but they're going to cause enough chaos. And basically, Jeff, it is getting disgusting when police officers are told by scumbag politicians to stand down. It is absolutely disgusting, okay? And basically, all right, let's look what happened here in Boston at 2 a.m. in the morning on the corner of Mass Ave and Tremont Street, okay? These punks started problems, burning a police car and everything else, okay? And what happens to them? A couple of them get arrested? Now, if we had law and order politicians, every one of them should have been arrested. Every one of them should have been fined $1,000. Every one of them should have spent at least 10 days in jail and also 2 years of probation. And the other thing is...
Oh, Russ, hang on. I'm going to come right back to you. You are nailing it. I agree with you 1,000%. Let's go right back to Russ in Boston. Russ, you were making, I thought, an absolutely superb point. There should be a hell of a lot more of a consequence to firebombing a police car than $500 bail. It should be, and if you're going to throw objects at police cars and attack police officers, jump on cars, this should come with some serious jail time and probation. Please, Russ, pick up where you left off.
Jeff, I'm tired of scumbag repeat offenders getting away with murder. It is aggravating. And let me put it this way. If I had my way, no bail for repeat offenders, and you would see how quickly crime would go down. But yet, the stupid voters of Massachusetts and other liberal states and other liberal cities don't have enough brains and guts to elect law and order politicians that can claim that. And let's look in New York City, okay? They're about ready to elect a communist Jew hater, okay? And they have someone running, the person that started the Guardian Angels in New York City. Just to think how law and order will come back to New York City if he became the mayor of New York. And then you look at the 11 jackasses that represent us in Washington. You got the fake Indian who's a communist Jew hater, and then the other 10 are nothing but cowards and won't even speak out against a communist running for mayor of the city of New York.
Well, Russ, look, this is what we're watching now. We're watching the radicalization of the Democratic Party. You put your finger right on it. Whether it's Johnson in Chicago, whether it's Mamdani, who now is ahead by double digits, He forced Eric Adams out of the race. It's not going to stop him. Cuomo won't beat him. Cuomo's so stupid, he wouldn't even take a endorsement from Trump. As I said on Newsmax when they asked me about this, what was it, a couple days ago, I said, now you know why Cuomo's such a horrible politician. You need every vote that you can possibly get if you're Andrew Cuomo at this point. And you turn down Trump's endorsement? Okay. So Mamdani is going to win. Barring some kind of a miracle, Mamdani is going to be the next mayor of New York. And this is the power of AOC, of Bernie, of the squad, of Obama. This is now a radical left Marxist communist party. That's what is now clearly emerging in front of our eyes. And just like the Democrats became very radicalized in the 1850s, leading up to what happened in 1860, that's what we're seeing now. And so we have to ask ourselves, are we willing to tolerate this? And look, the country is now increasingly becoming an 80-20 country. Not 50-50, not even 60-40 or 70-30. Most Americans think Brandon Johnson is a complete nut job. Nobody believes in creating ice-free zones. Nobody suddenly thinks now the job of these mayors is to protect Tren de Aragua and murderers and rapists and sex traffickers and drug dealers. Like, you have to be seriously sick in the head to believe that. So, or Portland. Yeah, this stuff may play well with the crazies in Portland, the militant leftists, but to the rest of the country, they look at Portland and they say, my God. I mean, it's a third world anarchy hellhole. So it's becoming an 80-20. The problem is that 20%, the 1/5 of the population, are getting more extreme, more violent, more unhinged, almost now by the day, to the point I don't want to beat a dead horse. But you talk about, this is the mayor of one of the biggest cities in America, okay, Chicago. And this guy won't stop going on about Trump wants to refight the Civil War? And that if you believe that ICE should enforce federal immigration law, that the center right, the right of the country, the country, that the right wants to relitigate and refight the Civil War? And that now he and Pritzker came out yesterday and said that Trump is militarizing Chicago? And that brown people, black people, Asian people, American citizens, now he's claiming journalists are being disappeared, according to Pritzker. What journalist has been, quote unquote, disappeared? What American citizens have been, quote unquote, disappeared? Like, you're crazy, man. You're living in an absolute fantasy world. You're deranged. You're nuts. So, and the more violent their rhetoric becomes, the more violent their supporters become. So it becomes like a vicious cycle. And that's why I'm with you, Russ. We got to break it. We got to break it now. Now. I mean, don't let this thing spread. Because this is what they want. They want violence. And again, what scares me is I've seen now a sea change among Democrats. It's been building now for many years, but we have to stare reality in the face. When you have millions and millions of liberals and Democrats, like Bill and Sudbury, openly cheering and celebrating the murder of Charlie Kirk, and then on top of that, you now have a nominee for the Attorney General. Remember, that's the top law enforcement officer in Virginia, Jay Jones. Openly fantasize about murdering Republicans. 2 bullets to the back of the head every time. Kill his wife, kill their kids, kill them all. And nobody is outraged? On the Democrat side, not one Democrat says, whoa. Hey, no. This has no place in a civilized country. In fact, the reaction is the opposite. Democrats are like, yeah, so? Like, we fantasize about killing Republicans all the time. That's what we do. Like, well, who cares? Of course he should stay in the race. No way should he drop out of the race. In fact, they're still going to vote for the guy. Russ, I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you. This is not good. Let me just put it this way. This is not good. Agree, disagree. Thank you for that call as always, Russ. Angelo in Rockland. Thanks for holding, Angelo, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. Yep, this is somewhat out of control. But, unlike the Democrats that use lawfare and all these horrible treasonous acts that they do, the Republicans have to go about it tolerating this terrorist activity throughout the country and the push that all these mayors and governors are doing. So that being said, I think that do everything legally, and because you can't go down to their level. I can't believe the restraint that these officers have taken all that bull crap that they're putting up with. But that's part of their plan from the big money people, and we know who they are. Look at Hillary, what she did all these years. The record on her hand, the blood running down her knees for everybody that supposedly coincidentally died that could have crossed her. But one other thing I'd like to say, Jeff, the New York Yankees is a great team, and those New York people will support them to their last breath. But I can't believe that those same New Yorkers are letting their city being taken away by those people and the radical people. They're letting their city be dragged out of their hands without a shot being fired. Shame on those New York people. I'd be out of my mind if that was me living in New York. That's a disgrace, Jeff. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Look, I think they're going to make the biggest mistake in the history of New York, and that's saying something. They have no idea what they're getting. They think, yeah, he talks like a radical, but he'll be a conventional Democrat. That's what they think. And that he's going to lower prices because things are very expensive in New York. Look, I'll tell you the story that launched the Mamdani Revolution. It happened in Manhattan. And in a way, I can't stand Mamdani. I hate everything he believes in. I think he's going to be a disaster for New York. I think he's a Jew hater, an anti-Semite. I think he's a Marxist Muslim, to be perfectly candid with you. And that's the most dangerous kind of leftism you can have. But people, it was under Biden. Inflation was exploding all across the country. It hit New York the hardest. And so at one of these delis in Manhattan that people like, they went in to order a sandwich. And a typical pastrami sandwich or a turkey and cheese or a ham and Swiss cheese sandwich, $32.50. $32.50. And people just said, we can't do this anymore. We can't do this anymore. Now, you go to not just Manhattan now, in other boroughs of New York City. I mean, people are posting it. 2 pizzas, 1 cheese, and another one, say, pepperoni or sausage. Nothing fancy, just 2 pizzas. And you pick it up, not delivery. You pick up the pizza. $71 for 2 pizzas. $71. So the cost of living is so outrageous. Okay, let me ask all of you. And by the way, a couple lines are open if you want to jump on. 617-266-6868. Is this another coincidence? Because I tend not to believe in coincidences. But this insurrection, and I'm choosing my words now very carefully, this chaos, this treason, this insurrection that we're now seeing being implemented, orchestrated, masterminded from California to Portland, Oregon, obviously, Chicago, Illinois, all of this now that's taking place, these vicious attacks on ICE, this now growing defiance and rebellion against federal authority and the federal government, is also happening in the midst of a massive government shutdown. And it is a shutdown where Schumer has told his supporters he is going to break Donald Trump and he is going to break the Republican Party. And he's going to do it on the issue of giving illegal aliens hundreds of billions of dollars in free health care, taxpayer funded, we pay for it, as well as free transgender surgeries for minors, for children who want to get a sex change operation, and for extending Obamacare subsidies to the tune, I'm talking of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars. They want to add another $1.5 trillion to the national debt. And Schumer says he's not backing down. That, in fact, he's going to, if the government has to stay shut down for another week, another 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, Schumer says he's willing to keep it shut down basically almost semi-permanently. And yet, like the Democrats in 1860, when Lincoln was elected, they underestimated Lincoln. They thought they could break Lincoln, and they couldn't break Lincoln, and they couldn't break the Union. Well, now they're finding out that Trump is a man of his word, that Trump is not to be trifled with, that when Trump says he's going to hold the line, at least until now, he's going to hold the line. Yes, he says, I'm willing to negotiate. Of course, we can talk about subsidies and Obamacare, but that's got to be done not under a hostage situation with the proverbial gun to the head in the midst of a massive shutdown. It's going to be done through the normal compromise process when we look and vote for appropriations bills on spending, on everything else, and then we can talk about maybe compromising and coming to a deal. And I am not going to give illegal aliens any free health care, period. I'm not giving free surgeries to transgender, to children who claim to be transgender and want a sex change operation. Now, what you're also seeing is, think about this, as they're waging an insurrection, the Democrats now, to defend cheap illegal labor, like in 1860, they seceded, they started the Civil War to defend cheap slave labor. Now they're pushing an insurrection, and they've created a confederacy of these sanctuary states and cities to defend cheap illegal alien labor. Now they want free health care, taxpayer-funded health care, for cheap illegal alien labor. Notice, everything comes back to illegal aliens, like it came back to slavery for the Democrats in 1860. And Lincoln then stood in their way, and now it's Trump. Lincoln and the Republicans stood in their way then. Trump and the Republicans stand in their way now. Now, what you're seeing, like in 1860, is the massive radicalization. They were called fire eaters in the South. Those were those that were pushing for secession. They were calling for the breakup of the Union. They were talking about war, about violence, about openly defying federal authority and federal jurisdiction. And so those extremists, the fire eaters, as they were called, they were breathing fire because they were so incendiary when they spoke, is now the same what you're seeing today. This extreme left wing, these Marxists and communists that have now hijacked and taken over the leadership of the Democratic Party. So the Democratic Party is becoming more extreme, more radical, more Marxist by the day, by the minute, by the hour. You want to see how extreme they've become? Listen now. This is Senator John Kennedy, Republican, Louisiana. He is now listing and this is the only word that comes to mind is insane. Insane, crazy, unhinged, take your pick. These are the demands that they are now making in order to restore the government, to end the shutdown. This is what AOC says is a non-negotiable. This is what Schumer says is a non-negotiable. This is now what the modern day fire eaters This is now what these socialists are saying. We will not open up the government unless you give us the following. And it's not just free health care for illegals. Okay? You're not going to believe it if I said it because it is so crazy. These people are such left-wing lunatics. You would not believe it. Come on, Jeff. You're making it up. Come on. You're exaggerating for effect. Okay, here it is. Roll cut 19. Mike.
Basically, President Trump just said, we want you to take some stuff out of the budget that we think is wasteful. And we did. And that upset the Congresswoman. She's entitled to be upset if she wants to. But that really upset the socialist wing of the party. And so we took out, and here's what they want us to put back in. We found that under President Biden, they were spending $3 million for circumcisions and vasectomies in Zambia. We took that out. The Congresswoman says, we're going to shut down government until you put that back in. We found $500,000 of American taxpayer money for electric buses in Rwanda. We found $3.6 million for pastry cooking classes and dance focus groups for male prostitutes in Haiti. I kid you not. I'm not making this up. It was in the budget under President Biden.
$3.6 million for cooking and dance classes for male prostitutes in Haiti. In Haiti. Honestly, I would say, okay, if it's condoms or safe sex practices or, I don't know, AIDS treatment or AIDS medication for male prostitutes in Haiti, I would still be 1,000% against it. Don't get me wrong. But at least I'd say, okay, there's some logic there. Male prostitutes in Haiti? Why do they, they don't know how to cook rice? Well, I'm serious. What do they need cooking lessons for? To dance better when they service their clients? To shake their rear end better when they're, servicing their clients? Like, they got to practice yoga and meditation before they go in there and do their thing? With a client in Haiti? Vasectomies and circumcisions in Zambia, in Africa. Like so we got vasectomies. That's now what we're into now for the men in Zambia. And by the way, circumcisions is for men. It's not female genital mutilation, which they also practice in Africa in many Muslim countries. They impose it on these poor women. It's for the men. Now, it's not just that they're funding this. It was taken out. And they're now saying, if you want us to agree to end the shutdown, you got to put that back in. Now, you tell me that either you laugh or you cry. So, by the way, did you hear now they're starting to temporarily shut down airports in the United States? For hours and hours now, they're temporarily closed because they're not paying air traffic controllers because of the government shutdown? So Americans can't get on planes, and it's going to get worse and worse by the day because you want to fund $3.6 million in cooking classes and yoga classes to male prostitutes in Haiti or vasectomies and circumcisions in Zambia or electric buses in Rwanda. Never mind free health care for every illegal alien in this country, which, by the way, would bankrupt us. It's not a question of will Trump cave or not cave. If he caves, that's it. It's over. Financially, it will break our back. It's done. Bye-bye. Good night, Irene. This is how radical, extreme, frankly, insane, deranged the Democrats have become. Now, they were so freaking deranged, it led to one civil war, which they started. Do they want to go down this road again? And so let me ask all of you, okay? Double-barreled question. Let's throw this log on the fire. What the hell? If this is not a free speech zone, then what's the point of us having this show? And what's the point of me being behind this microphone? Number one, is Trump the Lincoln of our time? Is history in many ways, it never repeats itself completely, obviously. But are we starting to see now history in a way repeat itself? Where the Democrats are becoming now neo-Confederates and Trump is now becoming a Lincoln nationalist. Is this now what we're seeing? Number one. Number two, should Trump compromise with the Democrats to end the shutdown? He says over his dead body, absolutely not. No to free health care to illegals. No to free transgender surgeries for minors or transgendered kids. No to 3.6 million for male prostitutes in Haiti. No for free circumcisions and vasectomies for men in Zambia. That, as he put it, this is a red line and we will not allow anyone to cross it. And above all, in this battle now for public opinion and public perception, who is winning and who is losing? Is the Schumer shutdown part of a larger Democratic effort to attack Trump on every angle? Where you have insurrectionist mayors in Chicago and Portland calling now for naked anti-ICE violence and ICE-free zones, while Schumer and the congressional Democrats now keep the government shut down, the government paralyzed, and are fighting almost now to the death politically over illegal aliens. They're waging violence for illegal aliens. They're waging insurrection for illegal aliens. And now they've shut the government down over illegal aliens. 617-266-6868. Is it now? And I'm hoping it doesn't get violent. I mean, serious violent. Obviously, the last thing I want is a civil war. But is this now looking a little bit more and more like 1860 2.0? Now, remember, in 1860, there was no coincidence. It was a conspiracy. They wanted to defend slavery at all costs. They wanted to undermine and subvert Lincoln at all costs. And they wanted to politically break the Republicans at all costs. Are we now seeing the same strategy unfold in 2025? 617-266-6868. Wes in Saugus. Thanks for holding, Wes, and welcome.
How you doing, Jeff?
Hi, Wes.
Listen, I watched a video. There's a video circulating. I don't know if I can give it to you on the air, but you need to see this. There's a Biden-Harris an administrator that was taking all the illegals in, and how they did it was she was told in a meeting to ask these illegals if they had any headaches, any backaches, and if they did, they put them on Social Security or Medicaid automatically and gave them a passport to the United States. You didn't see that video yet?
No, I did not, Wes. Can you?
I would love. I don't want. Can I say it to you on the air? I don't know why it's not gone viral because she tells the whole story. It was on Twitter, and then this lady from YouTube picked it up. Can I give it to you?
Yes, please, Wes. Email it to me, Jeffrey Kuhner at iHeartMedia.com. That's my email address. Kuhner, Jeffrey with a J, Jeffrey, Kuhner at iHeartMedia.com. Send it to me, and I'm definitely going to be interested. I'll definitely take a look, Wes. And thank you very much again. I appreciate it very much, Wes. 617-266-6868. Look, to answer my own question, yeah, I think it's coordinated. I think there's no question it's coordinated. I don't think this is happening by accident or by coincidence. So the Democrats are itching for a shutdown. Remember, they voted for the shutdown. I mean, the record is clear. And they voted for the shutdown again and again, multiple times. So they've shut the government down fundamentally over illegal aliens, healthcare, hundreds of billions of dollars in taxpayer-funded healthcare for illegals. And then right on the heels of that, they're now saying we're going to meet violence with violence on the streets of Chicago and on the streets of Portland. That, we see ICE, we're going to target them. We see the National Guard, we're going to target them. We're now establishing ICE-free zones, and we no longer recognize federal authority within these city limits, and you can't stage any raids on city property or in any business that doesn't recognize the authority of ICE or the validity of ICE. And now you've got literally bedlam. ICE vehicles being attacked, boxed in, rammed, shot at, crazy crowds surrounding ICE facilities, making it impossible for them to do their jobs. With, Brandon Johnson going on about we got to refight the Civil War. And you've got Antifa now rampaging and on the streets of Portland. Again, if you don't hear, don't take my word for it. This is Portland now. This is what they're unleashing in Portland. So this is reporter Nick Sorter. This is on Fox. And by the way, he was arrested by Portland police just for covering what Antifa, their violent protests against ICE agents and that ICE building in Portland. So Sorter gets assaulted by Antifa, and they arrest Nick Sorter, the police. Listen now to Nick Sorter saying they're not arresting violent Antifa protesters. In fact, they're either turning a blind eye to journalists like this woman from the Post-Millennial who literally got her face smashed in, or they're arresting the victims of Antifa. Listen now to Nick Sorter. Roll cut 7A. Mike.
They have cops here. They're told to stand down. They're told not to help innocent civilians. But at this point, they are on the side of criminals and Antifa out here. They are the ones that don't get prosecuted. You saw Katie Davenport from the Post-Millennial get hit with a pole the other day. And Portland police walked away. They were told by top brass to stand down. So they're openly siding with Antifa terrorists out here.
Okay, now the name was Katie Davis. I'll get to this in a second. This is just natural sound. I could play you cut after cut because it's all caught on video. Multiple cameras. This is Nick Sorter getting arrested by police. Now remember, Sorter is just covering what Antifa is doing. They attack him. And the police arrest Nick Sorter. By the way, he's going to sue the city of Portland, and I'm telling you, he may bankrupt them. He's got the mother of all lawsuits. Listen now, and Antifa is taunting him. They're basically telling him, we control Portland, and we control the police. Roll cut 7B. Mike.
Hey.
Whoa.
Any further universe? Got a bigger picture here.
They're laughing at him and swearing at him. They assaulted him, and the Portland police arrested him. Okay, now, here's Katie Davis. She got smashed in the face with a flagpole by Antifa. You should see her face. No arrest. Roll cut 7C. Mike.
Don't Katie was at the January 6th. She just hit me in the face. Katie was at the January 6th riot. Like a Katie was at the January 6th riot. Oh my God. Katie was at the January 6th riot. She just hit me in the face.
Okay. Pole smashing her in the face, and they're taunting her, saying, January 6th wasn't a riot. January 6th wasn't a riot. And they keep whacking her. 617-266-6868. Tom in Framingham. Thanks for holding, Tom, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. I got a couple things I want to talk about. One quick one is peripheral to your first topic, and that's Judge Karen Emmergut. She's the judge who ruled that Trump couldn't send National Guard troops from other states into Oregon.
That's right.
She was, as you know, she was a Trump appointee in 2019. Now, how did that happen? The reason she got appointed was the blue slip, and that Lindsey Graham went to Trump and said, I think Wyden and the other guy will, I think we can live with her, and I think Wyden and the other guy will approve of her. So here's an example where this blue slip is biting Republican presidents because they've got to appoint judges that meet the approval of the Democratic senators in the state. However, I don't think it's actually working the other way. And incidentally, Grassley, worse than anything, that swampy old senile Grassley has to. He's a big supporter of the blue slip. In other words, he won't let anyone through judiciary unless they meet the approval of the two state senators, and that includes U.S. attorneys too. That's why they couldn't get Alina Habba through in New Jersey. My second point is, these pronouncements that the Trump administration makes about who's a terrorist and who isn't. They declared Antifa a terrorism group. Now Antifa is openly harassing citizens, endangering ICE, shooting at and sieging ICE buildings. And they've yet to do anything about it. I guess he's sending in troops now, but in my book, that's not even enough. And again, I agree with you 100% on Bondi. While Bondi's made some progress in firing some of the rot inside DOJ, she hasn't done enough. And right now, Trump really should invoke this Insurrection Act, but Bondi should be working on arrest warrants for police chiefs who fail to protect the citizenry of those cities and states, and even the mayors. Because right now Trump's looking like a little bit of a blustery paper tiger, and that he's making Antifa a terrorist group, and Antifa on television is openly doing these things and getting away with it.
Oh, I mean, they're busting people's heads open right there on TV, and it's not just that they're doing it on TV in front of the camera; they're doing it right in front of the cops, the Portland police. And the Portland police are not arresting them. In fact, they're arresting the people whose heads they're breaking in. You can't make this up. So Antifa, their slogan is, which is what they chant all the time, whose streets are streets. And they're basically letting it be known, we run downtown Portland. That's it. It's like a militia in a third world country. It's like, that's what they are. They're a Marxist militia. That's what they ultimately... militias are terrorist organizations, but they're a Marxist, communist, anarchist militia. And they operate with impunity. So, and the police have been told to cower and to stand down, and that's what they do. Now, look, either Trump has teeth or he doesn't. Either his executive orders mean something or they don't. Either when the President of the United States of America has designated a violent, radical left-wing group that has been involved in rioting, burning, looting, murder, extortion, literally physically attacking federal law enforcement, destroying and burning buildings, courthouses, police stations. And they're walking the streets of Portland and everyone's afraid of them. So if he doesn't act, it's going to embolden even more resistance. and more of this kind of anarchy and political terrorism and political violence. So I'm with you all the way. And look, they think they're untouchable. And I'm sorry, but look, you need an attorney general that is not afraid to be controversial, that is not afraid to be hated by the media or the Democratic Party. This is a war. I don't want it to be a hot war, but we are now in a political, ideological, cultural, civil war, which is starting to turn hot. And by the way, I'm not the only one saying this now. Many are saying this. And it's all coming from the Democratic Party. All of it. And so, you go on about the blue slip. Notice it's always one way with these people. Democrats never go saying, if they want to appoint a judge in Alabama, they don't ask for the approval of the 2 conservative Republican senators from Alabama. They go, screw you. We're appointing this person, and that's it. It's going to be a left-wing Democrat hack. Take it or leave it. We don't care. So it's always one way. Now, if you're in a political war, and I believe we are in a political war, well, I'm sorry, then you're stupid. If you keep trying to compromise with an enemy that now has showed themselves that they so hate us that they fantasize about murdering us. And they're increasingly becoming violent. They're assassinating us. They're firebombing us. They're assaulting us. They're persecuting us. They're attacking us. Now, to prevent more violence, that's the point. You have to invoke the Insurrection Act. You have to restore public order, law and order. And no, I don't believe in coincidences. I'm giving you my honest opinion. They shut the government down and they coordinated with these mayors and these governors. And they said, no, now you're going to foment even more rebellion, more insurrection, and you're going to suck Trump in. And we're going to go after these National Guard troops and we're going to go after ICE. Because they want to see violence. Look, they want to instigate or incite a massacre. Because then they believe they can turn everything against Trump. So Trump's got to be forceful, but careful and calibrated. And where's Pam Bondi? I don't know. I think we have the answer to why the Democrats want to restore $3.6 million in U.S. taxpayer funding for male prostitutes in Haiti to teach them cooking classes. My sister texted me, Jeff, I don't think you understand. Cooking cats requires a lot of technique. So maybe it's to help them with they like to eat cats in parts of Haiti. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe that's what it is. But that's the best explanation I've heard so far. 617-266-6868. Okay, 934 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, liberalism's worst nightmare. Lines are jammed. Gardner in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Gardner, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. Hey, thanks for taking my call.
My pleasure.
We'll probably have a disagreement, but it'll be a friendly disagreement. I brought this up a little bit to Sandy when she was filling in, and I'm going to be interested to see how the courts rule on this because there are a couple things. First, on the immigration issue, and then the federal government under an executive order of Trump going into various states. The Insurrection Act is an act, and it is, of course, subordinate to the Constitution. The Constitution, under Article 4, Section 4, requires that for the executive branch to lead any federal troops into a state, they have to be invited by the legislature of the state, or if the legislature is out of session, the governor can invite them in, which is why Greg Abbott and Ron DeSantis did exactly that when Joe Biden was president, and they complained because they weren't getting a proper response. In fact, Joe Biden was literally bringing people in. And so now we have the flip side of it in a way. And the other thing is, beyond the fact that Article 4, Section 4 requires that, what's I think very interesting is, and I don't know if you've ever spoken with kids about this as well, is you might remember how the Constitution has 3 types of land that the federal government can own or run. Do you remember what those are?
Gardner, I don't want to get too far afield. I want to stay on topic. So are you trying to say that Trump doesn't have the right to invoke the Insurrection Act, and he doesn't have the right to send federal troops or National Guard troops to quell an insurrection in Portland or in Chicago? Is that your point?
I have a couple points, actually. The point that I was trying to get to is that the federal government is only allowed under the Constitution to run 3 forms of land: a 10-square-mile area for the capital, which they chose to be Washington, D.C., military garrisons, such as Fort Sumter in Civil War, and territories. And when territories become states under the Constitution, they say they enter the Union with all rights and privileges of any other state. So what I'm going to be interested in seeing is how they handle the federal courthouses, which is the rationale, of course, as you know, under which Trump is saying we're going in to try to, or at least part of it, to try to protect these federal courthouses. Now, obviously, you and I have different opinions about this, but I'm going to be very interested to see how the courts rule on this. And the other thing on which you and I disagree is, of course, the difference between the word naturalization and immigration. The word immigration is not in the Constitution. It was a state purview. The state of Texas had a Bureau of Immigration when it entered the Union in 1869. Naturalization, how a person becomes a citizen, is in the Constitution, and there's no bleed over. There's no way that someone can try to distinguish between these, as Thomas Jefferson said and as James Madison said in 1798. So I'll just lay that out there for you. And
Gardner, look, I mean, I can handle all that really in about a minute. Number one, when Jefferson was president and when Madison was president, they deemed immigration as a federal authority and a federal responsibility. So, I mean, I don't know how much clearer they can make it. And for our entire history, immigration has been a federal authority and a federal responsibility, done primarily through Congress, not through the state legislatures, not through a governor, not through any kind of a local authority. So, and I think the courts have settled this over and over and over again. Now, as for invoking the Insurrection Act, it has been invoked in the past. I believe Trump has every legal right to invoke it, and we'll watch. The Supreme Court will weigh in on this. Trump has already asked for it to be fast-tracked, whether troops can be deployed into Oregon. And my bet is, and you can call me back if I'm wrong, it'll be definitely 5-4, most likely 6-3. The Supreme Court will say Trump has every right to order the National Guard or the California National Guard, which has been federalized, or the Texas National Guard, which Governor Abbott has now given him permission to use. And he's already using some of them to send them into Chicago. And you don't have the right to rebel against federal authority unlawfully. And that's what we're seeing in Chicago and in Portland and any other states. If they are allowed to do what they're doing, then we don't have a country. We have anarchy. And the one thing our founding fathers hated was anarchy. Yes, they hated a strong, over-centralized federal government, no question. Yes, they believed in many and most issues. States and localities were preeminent, no question. But they believed in federalism, meaning different levels of sovereignty for different levels of government. And they were not anarchists. And what you're seeing in Chicago, what you're seeing in Portland, what you're seeing, frankly, in Boston, in Massachusetts, in California, is straight out anarchy. And it is a repeat of what the Democrats did in 1860. And what they did in 1860 was to start the most destructive, deadly war in American history. More Americans died in the Civil War than all the other wars that we've participated in combined. And you would think they would have learned their lesson, but they haven't. And so, it's easy to be a radical libertarian, to be a radical individualist, but that's not America. That's, you're building castles in the sky. What you're doing is you're putting abstract philosophy over history, precedent, and reality. Jefferson was not a libertarian. Madison was not a libertarian. Washington was not a libertarian. They were classical liberals, yes, in many ways. But they were not anarchists. They were not anarcho-libertarians, to give you the technical definition. So what you're doing is you're trying to read your libertarianism and your flirtation with anarchy into the Constitution and to American history. And I'm telling you, you'll see the Supreme Court will rule in favor of Trump on the Insurrection Act, and they will definitely rule in favor of Trump when it comes to deploying the federal troops. Or else we don't have a country. If we cannot deport the most violent illegal alien criminals from our country, then we have no borders, we have no sovereignty, and we have no country. And a country without borders and sovereignty is not a country. I mean, that's just a fact. So anyway, Gardner, thank you very much for that call. I appreciate it. We agree to disagree as usual. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, but let me ask all of you. Do you think Trump doesn't have the legal or constitutional authority to send in the National Guard or federal troops into Chicago or Portland or California or wherever? And ICE agents. Do mayors have the right to block and prevent ICE and Customs and Border Protection from arresting, detaining, and deporting illegal aliens? I say it's insane. We don't have a country, but that's me. I want to hear from you. Ron in Medford. Thanks for holding, Ron, and welcome.
So many topics to talk about, but I'd like to talk about something that is really not said. The Republicans for decades do not know how to communicate with the American people. What the president needs to do, or the Republican National Committee needs to do, is get time like Franklin Roosevelt did during World War II and have a fireside chat. For example, show the governor of Oregon saying there is no trouble, and then show video of what's going on in Oregon. Do the same thing with Illinois, and do the same thing with any other city or state that's having a problem. The American public has the attention span of a gnat, and unfortunately sometimes the brains of a gnat. We have to be simple with them. We have to be exact with them. And I think the video, along with the words and maybe 50 pictures of some of these violent criminals, the murderers, the rapists shown up there, and then show the victims of what happened. That's what's going to make an impression on the American people, not the rhetoric. No one wants to listen to that. We need to be exact in what we do, and we need to have the American people understand what's going on.
Ron, I don't agree with you 100. I agree with you 1,000%. The difference I would just say is this. I agree with you, but the dominant medium of our time is television, right? When FDR was doing his fireside chats in the 30s and during World War II, it was radio. And you're right. He spoke to the country every week on the radio. But here's the difference, Ron. In those days, our political system was much fairer than it is today. So even if a radio station, say, opposed the president's policies, they would still give him the time that he asked for, whatever, half an hour or 45 minutes, whatever the time was, for him to deliver his fireside chat. So every week, unimpeded, he could talk directly to the American people, as you're suggesting, and I agree with you, that Trump and the Republicans do. If Trump said, well, I'd like to have 20 minutes, 15 minutes, 10 minutes, but give me the airwaves so I can tell the American people the truth, CBS wouldn't cover him. They wouldn't give him the time. I mean, he may get once a year special address to the country, but every week, like FDR, CBS, ABC, NBC, most of the networks would not give the president the kind of unfiltered access and communication to the American people that, say, FDR had as president in the 30s and 40s. So I think that's the problem. I mean, Fox would give him the 10 minutes or 15 minutes. Newsmax would. CNN wouldn't. MSNBC wouldn't. Most of the big networks wouldn't. So my question to you, Ron, is how does Trump get around that? He could do videos, that's fine, but then it's only people that are interested that'll watch the video. So if he's going to address the people in real time as FDR did, how does he get around that, essentially that media monopoly that the Democrats and the liberals control?
I think the Republican National Committee needs to try to purchase airtime. And then if they're denied that, then that's another thing that can come out about how biased the system is. But I don't think, Jeff, that they would deny him that much, because I think they'd be a little concerned about what the appearances are of not letting the President of the United States address the American people. And I don't think it needs to be every week. I just think it needs to be one time where the visuals are shown, where the words are shown about these communists, about what they're saying, that there's no problem, and then show the results of having all these illegal immigrants in the country, the deadly results to so many families. I think that would have an impact, not on the 30% who couldn't care less, but those people in the middle who like Trump's policies but hate his personality. And I hear over and over again from those people, they can't vote for someone like that. But they love the policies. So, I mean, I think that would maybe sway it. But that's just my opinion.
No, Ron, look, excellent point. And maybe when he invokes the Insurrection Act, and I think it's almost inevitable now that he will, then I think he has to address the country. If he's going to take something, that's a serious step to invoke the Insurrection Act. It's a momentous step. I think then he needs to address the country. And you're right. I think then the networks will have no choice but to give him the airtime. And then he should be using a lot of video, exactly what you're suggesting, right? There's no problem in Portland. Really? Look at this. Oh, it's all peaceful in Chicago. Look at this. So I agree with you. He doesn't need to just use words. He's got to show images, pictures, videos. Let the American people see how crazed and violent and rebellious these insurrectionist mayors have now become.